Thank you. A Minnesota community is mourning one day after a mass shooting shattered the serenity of a school prayer service. 2 children, ages 8 and 10, were killed. Police say the shooter targeted them through the windows of the sanctuary as they prayed at a mass that was open to the public. 14 other children, ages 6 to 14, were injured. Now, 3 parishioners in their 80s were also shot. Visibly shaken parents, they rushed to Annunciation Catholic Church as word spread of the shooting. Police say the shooter, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound behind the church. Now, earlier on CBS News 24/7, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara had this to say about what's been learned about the shooter in just the past 24 hours. Listen.
What we have seen so far with the evidence, unfortunately, is this is a deranged individual who, like so many other mass shooters, has had an obsession with previous mass shootings that was looking to cause as much trauma and carnage as possible for their own personal notoriety. We have not been able to narrow down a specific motive in this case, but we have seen, just countless pieces of evidence that indicate a whole wide variety of hate.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey rushed to the shooting scene, offering support for families and first responders. But he also expressed anger and frustration that the often offered thoughts and prayers were just not enough. Frey was on CBS Mornings earlier and talked about what he wants to do to stop tragedies like this from happening again.
Well, you're going to hear me loud and clear, voicing for as great restrictions as we can possibly get here. I'm a mayor. I fill potholes. We try to put up more affordable housing. We try to keep people safe. But as mayors, we're also very much on the front lines dealing with some of the repercussions when we don't see action at other levels of government. And while there has been, at least in the case of Minnesota, some progress made, we need more, not just in this state, but nationwide. We need to recognize that we love our children more than we love our guns. We need to recognize as a country that when something like this happens, we've got the courage and the conviction to act.
My prayer and condolences goes to all the victims that were affected by this tragic event, by this individual. It's very heartbreaking to see such a thing like this, where you see a bunch of kids who's going to school, who are basically trying to better their life, who's trying to gain education, and you hear an event like this. Imagine you dropping off your child at school, knowing that they're safe, knowing that you're going to come and pick them up, and then you hear this news while you're at work. A lot of parents are panicking. A lot of people will definitely panic. I will even panic if I send my child in a school or even just a neighboring school and I hear a shooting happen just around the neighborhood. I will panic because it's so concerning, because these kids are a bunch of elementary school kids. They didn't do nothing to nobody, and now this individual just came in there and started shooting for a reason that we probably don't know. He has his own reason, but it's very sad to see a tragic event like this happen, where you see a bunch of kids who are just a bunch of innocent kids just trying to live life, trying to grow up in this society, and just ended up getting shot like this. And it's very sad to see a thing like this.
Usher Qureshi, who joins us live from Minneapolis. Usher, thank you so much for joining us today. How is the community out there responding to this tragedy so far?
Well, Mugo, as is understandable, this is a community still stunned by what has occurred, and yet we're seeing support pouring in all forms. Many have come together to hold vigil, not only last night, but also today. Just down the block from where we're standing, countless bouquets of flowers have been laid down near the school, and up the street in front of Annunciation Catholic Church, there's another growing memorial. Now, throughout the morning, people have been coming through to pay their respects to the people of this parish and to this school.
And Usher, we've heard from some children and even from police as well, and they talked about the heroism of fellow students and even teachers at the school. Can you take us through some of those accounts?
Yeah, absolutely. We're also hearing those harrowing moments in the immediate aftermath of this shooting. The video that you're about to see is very difficult to watch as terror, chaos, and confusion shows. At the same time, we're learning about how children came to the aid of their fellow classmates, how teachers rushed to move students out of the danger zone, some reuniting with their parents. Now, there's no telling how many lives were saved as a direct result of those quick actions, Mugo.
Wow. And what is the latest on those 17 victims who survived the shooting?
Well, as we know, Mugo, 2 children, ages 8 and 10, were killed on the scene. Law enforcement says first responders were able to immediately rush in to render first aid to the wounded and transported 17 victims, as you mentioned, to area hospitals, most of them children. Now, the most seriously injured were taken to Hennepin County Medical Center. There have been some treated for non-life-threatening injuries, with a number already having been released, but there are still at least 5 children and 1 adult in critical condition. Mugo?
And we're praying for them and hoping for the best. Usher Qureshi in Minneapolis for us today. Thank you so much for your time. Let's turn now to Anna Schechter. She's a producer with our CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit. Anna, thank you for making time for us today. What do we know so far about the
Now, it raised a lot of questions, like who is this individual? What was the cause of this behavior? What was the cause of this action? How come nobody did not detect this before it happened? So there's multiple questions that will be asked. And the police have to try to answer. The mayor has to try to answer. It's a concern. A lot of parents are basically nervous. No parents want to lose their child. No parents want to bury their child. And this is very sad to see this tragic event happening. And a lot of people are basically shocked by it, even the president. This is concerning not just in Minnesota, but it's also throughout the nation, because it happened almost every year and it seems like there's no solution in sight. So a lot of people are basically concerned. A lot of people are raising a lot of questions, asking a lot of questions, because so far this has been happening. Because I remember back then when the Columbine shooting happened, until now, there's just shooting that just continues to happen. So what's the cause of this? What causes people to just wake up one morning to go into school and just start shooting people? Especially if you're an adult like that 23-year-old who shot himself, going inside a middle school or elementary school just to go shoot up little kids. There's no reason for that. So it's kind of sad to see this type of news happening, and a lot of people are being impacted by this.
Actually knew exactly what that church looked like, that the shooter had made very specific drawings of the very place that the shooter wound up firing those shots into when those bullets went right through the stained glass windows to strike children. So there is a connection there, but police tell us that they don't have any specific trigger that alerts them to a very specific motive of why the shooter attacked that particular school. Now, of course, that's interesting because this news from police comes against the backdrop of the head of the FBI, Kash Patel, posting on X yesterday afternoon that he's ordering his agents to investigate this as a possible act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime against Catholics. Now, our teams have been reviewing the writings of the shooter, videos posted online, which include weapons with hateful comments written onto them. They are targeting Blacks, Jews, Hispanics. So there's a wide array of grievances that investigators have been looking at. And they tell me that's why they've been hesitant to put out a specific motive, Mugo.
Yeah, and Anna, I just want to expand on that because, as you mentioned there, the shooter talks about various groups, not just one. And if Kash Patel is calling this an act of domestic terrorism, specifically against Catholics, it does seem like there's still the bigger question of why this happened in the first place, because, again, the shooter talked about various groups of people.
That's exactly right. We're also piecing together a little bit more about this individual's background. The shooter had a job until mid-August, so recently quit a job. And then we're looking into those 3 residences where search warrants were executed yesterday and more weapons were confiscated from yesterday. Unclear exactly why there were those 3 residences, so we're drilling down on that. Investigators are still going through electronic devices. In fact, there are some outstanding devices that have not yet been searched that will likely need to be searched at some point. Now, this case is a little bit different because the shooter took their own life at the scene. Yeah. We are not seeing a case being prepared right now. So prosecutors are not building a case. But what investigators are continuing to work towards, they want to make 100% sure that nobody aided or even knew about these plans, because we've talked about this earlier today. Minnesota does have a red flag law, and the family could have petitioned a judge to confiscate those weapons for a period of time. We've been drilling down on that, looking at that. There was a law that went into place in January of last year, so it was relatively new, but still it was on the books and had been used more than 100 times in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, still a lot of questions surrounding this case, the motive, the shooter, why they did this. And obviously, I know our team is working on getting that for us. Anna.
So the shooter had in mind to also attack, or he was even targeting other groups of people like blacks, Hispanic, Jewish, Catholic, and many more. So this is something that is concerning, especially for all those groups. And since this information is out, those groups should also be alert. They should also be aware, and they should also try to police their own community. We have a lot of individuals like this man right here who murdering a lot of people, who has all this mind, who has all this idea to basically eliminate a huge portion of a minority group because they don't like them. And this is a hate crime. And this is also a domestic terrorism, which a lot of people don't talk about, because we always talk about terrorism in a sense of like Islamic, but they never talk about domestic terrorism, especially with a lot of young white men. Because the media always portray them as, you know, always having some kind of mental health. When it comes to a person who's Islamic or from Middle East who conduct a crime like this, they always say he could be associated with ISIS, with the Taliban, with Al-Qaeda and things like that. When it's like a black person, they always mention that, oh, he's probably a former gang member, or his father was in his life. He grew up in a single mother household. His mother was a crackhead, or things like that. If it's a Hispanic, they could probably say, oh, he's a member of the Mexican cartel, or he's a member of the MS-13. So they always try to associate certain race with certain negative group just because, you know, to push their certain agenda. But when it comes to a white individual, they will always say, oh, he's probably has mental health. You know, his parents sounded an alarm years back saying that his kids need help and stuff like that, blah, 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 blah. So for me, you know, the fact that the FBI is investigating, it's a good thing. But the sad part about it is this man took his life. So all these kids, basically, their life just go to waste, basically. And these parents will not see justice for their children. And yes, the FBI should investigate, and should even investigate the parents or anybody that was involved in this, because most likely people close to him, maybe his family members, they knew about these behavior, and they did not probably call the police or try to get help, so he can be able to, you know, get support, get help from family members, from professionals, from experts, from people that has the capacity to probably even detect this ahead of time before they're dealt with this situation that we see today, where 2 kids have lost their life. Those 2 kids, they were 8 and 9 years old, and they had a huge future. They had a long life to live, you know, and it's kind of sad that their life is taken so early, and a lot of parents are shocked. A lot of parents are hurt. These 2 children parents, they're definitely devastated. because now their child is gone. And it's kind of sad to see this type of situation. Let me know what you guys think in the comment. And if you're new to my channel, please make sure you like, you share, you subscribe. Until next time.